Check out this video, it's really funny.
Okay. Oh no, that's 7 minutes long. It's preposterous.
Our attention spans are declining, and it has been corroborated with the research papers that have been published, and also a lot of videos and conversations that are happening on media right now. And your family, my family, the world's families, news channels, and everybody under the sun will blame social media for our declining attention spans. And there is some truth to it, but it's not the complete story. Because let's be real, our brain is so complex that it's never happy with just one reason for any issue we are facing. It needs multiple different things that causes troubles and problems that we face. In today's video, we are going to talk about our attention spans, why it might be declining, and what can we do about it to improve it. Now, this is not therapy, so none of the things that we will be discussing today is a replacement of therapy. If you feel like you genuinely have trouble paying attention and it's not really helping out with different self-help tips or a lot of measures that you're trying out, maybe it's okay to seek help with therapists, with coaches, and see where the problem might be happening. But let's get on to today's video.
Attention is a brain function that helps to select or exclude information based on certain criteria in order to avoid excessive information processing. It basically means that we focus on relevant information and exclude the ones that are not important. That way, we don't overload our brain with unnecessary data at a given point in time. A simple example could be when we are listening to our friends talk, we might tune out any other sounds in the background so that we can give our attention to whatever is being told by our friend. According to this paper published in Encyclopedia of Child Behavior and Development, attention span is an individual's ability to attend to a stimulus or object over a period of time, which is also something called sustained attention or vigilance. So when we are able to be alert and focus over a time period, that is called attention span.
In fancier terms, attention can be seen as a higher order, complex cognitive function. But if you look at it simply, it means that it's a very crucial part of our life. I mean, when we are driving, studying, just reading for fun, listening in on a conversation, gossiping with our friends, watching a new TV show, everything involved requires attention. When I was reading up different papers, I came across American Psychological Association's very own podcast, Speaking of Psychology. And back in 2023, they did an episode on our declining attention spans. And they invited Dr. Gloria Mark, who has been researching about it since back in 2004. And she said that our attention spans have declined and they were able to record it to some extent. So it was around 2.5 minutes in 2004, and then it turned to 75 seconds in 2012 and decreased further around 2018 and 2023 to 47 seconds. You guys can check out the full podcast. I'll be linking it in my description box below. Her research work is actually really interesting. By the way, if you guys have watched my last video, then you know that I mentioned a research and theory based in 2004. And today also, Dr. Gloria Mark has researched since 2004.
Coincidence? I think not!
It was a coincidence, but moving on. I think one of the things that people keep on worrying is our attention spans are declining, and why is it declining? But what if we started asking, are we meant to pay attention to one thing for a long time? Our attention spans are not really like brick walls, concrete, unmoving, and rigid. We are meant to pay attention and shift our focus from one thing to the other. If you think about it, it's like a survival mechanism. Because let's say you're reading something and all of a sudden you hear alarm. If you did not pay attention or you did not shift your focus to the alarm, it would be dangerous for you, right? When you read different books and texts, they will tell you the different kinds of attention. But when I was reading the transcript of the podcast, Dr. Gloria Mark mentioned focused attention and rote activity that she observed during her research work. Focused attention is basically when we pay attention to something that is challenging, that requires creativity and critical thinking. Whereas rote activity is more so casual kind of attention. It brings in a sense of fulfillment, but it's not that challenging. So an example of focused attention could be when we are doing our projects and work. But rote activity is when we are scrolling through social media, maybe playing a few online games here and there. When Dr. Gloria Mark researched focused attention, she found that it happens in rhythms. Now, when you read the definition of focused attention in different websites, it might be different. But the one she gave spoke about the feeling of challenging work where you have to do critical thinking. But then there are obviously other kinds of attention, and I wanted to mention just 3 of them, not all of them. One is sustained attention, which is our ability to focus on something for a longer period of time. And then we also have alternating attention and divided attention. And we have to know a little bit about this because it goes hand in hand with our ability to multitask. Alternating attention is our ability to focus on one thing and then shift our attention to another thing and then back to the first thing. So we basically shift from one to the other, like switch. Divided attention is a little theoretical if we are honest, because it is our ability to focus on 2 things at the same time. Realistically, it is not always possible. We need to have expertise on one or both the things. So alternating attention would be when you're cooking using a cookbook. So you're reading the book, processing the information, and then applying it at the same time, and then going back and forth. Divided attention would be when you're driving to work, and let's say you take the route every single day, so it's memorized. Now, if you have to take a call, it might be easier for you to talk, even though it's not recommended, and drive at the same time. Now, if you were to take a different route another day, talking on the phone would be very dangerous. I mean, it would be dangerous in the first case too.
I think we can finally also talk about what could be the reasons people's attention spans are declining. Now, the most obvious reason that you would see on the internet through, let's say, research papers, or a lot of newspapers talk about it as well, is social media. In fact, there is a high correlation between social media use and dopamine release. It's called social media dopamine loop. Well, without going into too much details, dopamine is a neurotransmitter that's released in our brain, and it's related to feelings of being rewarded or feeling really happy. So pleasure and feelings of being rewarded are 2 emotions associated with dopamine. Now, when you're sleeping properly, when you're eating healthy, when you exercise regularly, when you are finishing a project or a work, the kind of happiness or joy you might feel is associated with dopamine. So you feel better, your mood seems more lighter, you might seem happier. And a dopamine loop is also created through social media. It would be a lie to deny that social media can cause addiction, and there has been extensive research on that too. And dopamine loop is a reason for that. So a lot of people might find themselves feeling anxious. They're constantly checking their phone for notifications to see if anything is going on. When they're offline, they feel a little agitated. So all of that is connected to the dopamine loop. But that also affects our attention span. Like, we might be working on something and we are constantly thinking about a new video or maybe a reel or a short that we watched. We want to constantly check our phones and see what's going on. That might not be the only thing that is affecting our attention spans. In Ohio State University's Wexner Medical Center, they did a survey, and in that survey, they spoke to around 1,008 people, and the reasons that came up for declining attention spans is actually complex. The survey showed that stress and anxiety contribute most to people's attention span, which is around 43%. This was followed by lack of sleep at 39% and digital devices at 35%. There were other contributing factors too, like boredom or lack of interest at 31%. Then it was multitasking at 23%, lack of physical exercise at 21%, and poor hydration and diet at 20%, and other medical conditions such as ADHD at 18%. And only 25% of the people said that they did not have any trouble with their attention span. So if you look at it, yes, social media can contribute to poor attention span, but that's not the complete picture. And it seems like having a proper diet and maintaining proper hydration, some sort of physical exercise like walking, can benefit a person. Now, you might say that there are so many people on this planet, only 1,000 people have been surveyed, so is the data accurate? Yes, we need to conduct more research about it, but it does give us an understanding of what could be all the other reasons that's causing us to not be able to focus that properly. And frankly speaking, take a look at your life. Maybe you feel really stressed and anxious. Did you find it easy to focus on your task, or did you keep on thinking about the 10 different things that you might need to do? And now if you look at lack of sleep,
it does affect how we are functioning the next day. If you're feeling really tired, we don't really want to do anything that day. But maybe scrolling social media becomes easier. And there's a lot of research on exercise and diet and how it affects our brain health. And attention is closely connected to it. Because if you think about it, attention is not just us listening to someone talk or doing our work. It's us using our memory to think, to process information. So much is happening in the background. There are times people find it difficult to focus on a task when it's difficult and they want to avoid it. So that is something we might have to look inward as well. Is it about attention span, or is it that we want to avoid doing that task and scrolling social media is just easier in that given moment? But at the end, I think one of the most crucial things that we also have to focus on is multitasking. In different advertisements, especially when they're talking about Mother's Day or when they're showing their star employee, multitasking is seen as the superpower that makes them stand apart. And a lot of times people want to put people who multitask really well on a pedestal. But the truth is, our brain is not really meant to do two different things or multiple things at the same time. When we are focusing on something, we are critically analyzing it as well. And when we are doing multiple things at the same time, there is a price that we pay. When we are switching our focus from one thing to the other, we lose a little bit of time to orient from one task to the other. Just take note of, let's say, when you have to finish a project and you're writing the report, and you're also meant to finish an email and send it within the next 10 minutes. After you're done sending the email, when you come back to complete your report, you might take a few seconds to reorient and start typing again. That is called a switch cost. And normally it's maybe a tenth of a second. But if we look at our entire day, according to some research, it takes up almost 40% of our productive time. But in our day-to-day lives, at work, during studies, we are expected to constantly switch our attention between multiple things. In fact, multitasking can make it a little difficult to focus on one thing properly at a given time. Because then we are constantly losing time, losing energy, we might get exhausted at the end of the day and make a lot of mistakes as well. So it's not always simply about having the attention span less than that of a goldfish.
This goldfish is sad, and it's mostly because everyone keeps on saying that its attention span is 9 seconds and human beings have about 8 seconds of attention span now. But when I was trying to look up research papers about it, I could not find anything about attention spans of goldfish. What I did find were newspaper reports and old articles about our declining attention span. And when I also tried to look up the whole 8 seconds of attention span data, I could not find anything accurate.
Sometimes it's our work schedule, the expectations people have from us. And the thing is, we talk about social media and we talk about how we have so much option available to us. So we can always jump from one thing to the other, and that helps release dopamine. And then in turn, it might affect how much attention we can pay on one thing. If it's not interesting enough, or maybe if it's not flashy enough, like things on social media. But the way digital world works now, there's also an expectation for us to be available for others every single time. So we might be working on something, but our bosses might expect us to be available on call or through email. And so we are not really able to focus on one thing properly at all. So what do we do about it? Now, here are a few things that we could try to improve our attention spans. Now, this is not a replacement of therapy or any sort of medical intervention. Now, there's a chance that maybe going to a therapist or a doctor might give more insights and provide more help, but this is a good place to start. It involves a lot of self-reflection as well. One of the first things that we can focus on is to see if we are avoiding a task, and if that is what is making it difficult for us to focus. You might have something similar which makes you want to avoid a task, but you don't see that attention problem happening with other responsibilities or tasks in your life. Another thing is creating a workspace that's free from distractions. Now, when I say creating a workspace, I don't mean buying things. I'm just saying that we keep a corner in our home or in our room that's meant for study. We only study or we only work there and nothing else. To make sure that there is not many distracting things there, like phones, unless we need the phone to do the work. A lot of people also use internet blockers. A lot of people like to dress up in a particular way as well when they sit down to work because it puts them in that zone. Another thing to remember is our attention spans are not supposed to be constant. They come in like waves. As Dr. Gloria Mark's researched, a lot of our focused attention is more present or is at its peak around mid-morning or mid to late afternoon. It doesn't happen constantly for everyone. One way to check is firstly just see if you work better during the morning or during the night, and just maybe keeping a tab on what are the moments you find it the easiest to work. And organizing your schedule around that time might be a little more helpful for you to focus on your tasks. Now, this might make me sound like a broken record, but making sure that you have space or time during the day when you're not using your phones or you're not using the internet, that can be distracting. For some people, it can be maybe an hour or so before going to sleep. For some people, it is not really looking at the phone immediately after getting up in the morning. And for many people, it's a combination of both. One other thing that you can try doing is making sure your plans are customized to you. So maybe you work better with breaks. Incorporating breaks into your routine is much better than just trying to pack your day with multiple different things to do. Another thing that seems to help is breaking down the tasks into different steps that you need to follow. Let me give an example. If you have to send an email, instead of just writing an email needs to be sent tomorrow on your to-do list, you could write maybe the person you want to send that email to, what are the important points that you want to discuss in your email, and maybe by what time you would want to send that email. This is just an example, but what that might do is when you actually have to send it, you might not feel as lost. And it might be easier to get done with the task instead of trying to distract yourself with maybe social media, because I'm guilty of doing that. Now, I mentioned breaks just a few minutes ago, and taking breaks is extremely important to not feel burnt out or exhausted. But there is a way to do that as well. If you take a break in the middle of writing a report, then it might not be the best choice, because after you come back, you might not feel like writing it again. But let's say you write a draft, a very rough outline of what you want to write, and then you decide to take a break. Then coming back, you might feel more refreshed to start writing the main report. So making sure that your breaks are timed, something like that, will help you to not feel as exhausted or stressed out at the end of the day. I'm not saying that we shouldn't multitask at all. In fact, sometimes it's unavoidable. For example, maybe we have to read multiple sources, maybe a book, maybe a research paper. Being able to alternate our attention like that might actually help us. But sometimes when we are overdoing it, it can be exhausting. An analogy I like to use when talking about multitasking is, let's say that you have to attend a meeting, you're working from home, you have your camera and mic switched off, obviously, but you're sitting in a room and attending the meeting, and then you go ahead to another room and talk to your friend on the phone. Running from one room to the other can become really exhausting, and there's a high chance you might make a mistake or you might get really tired and frustrated. Multitasking can feel like that many times. Now, we can't avoid doing multiple things at the same time. Let's say we are writing a project and our boss asks us to send an email within the next 10 minutes. We can't avoid that. But wherever possible, if we stack up our work one at a time with breaks in the middle, we might end up feeling less exhausted at the end of the day. What some people like to do is they divide their day accordingly, where they may take admin related duties like sending emails towards the end of the day because they are exhausted, but they might take important calls and meetings during the morning. Now, this kind of flexibility might not be a reality for everyone, but the thing is, maintaining this kind of routine where we are not multitasking doesn't always have to be connected to our work. We can apply this in our personal lives too. Another very important thing to remember when we are trying to improve our attention spans is being empathetic towards ourselves. When we are trying out a new routine or trying to bring changes in our lives, it is going to be difficult. And there might be days where we don't want to make those changes at all. It's just easier to go back to our old habits. And that's where empathy and kindness towards ourselves really helps. If you are still here watching this video, thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, give a like, maybe share your comment and your perspective about decline in attention spans and what you think about it. And if you want to watch more videos related to psychology and mental health, don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well. For today, that's all. Bye!